Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Pink Nest podcast. I'm today with Anaïs Comot, a qualified career coach and international speaker. Very powerful woman, and this is what I absolutely love. She has a background in procurement and management consultancy, and she's on an amazing mission to empower 100,000 women to build careers they love by 2035. Welcome.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much, Nika. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I was really looking forward to this recording, and tell me a little bit more about yourself. Let's start as how was Anaïs like a child?
Ooh, good question. Okay, let's go back to the basics. I think as a child, I was always sort of bubbly. This has never came out of nowhere. I've always had this energy. For anyone who is watching, listening to this, I don't drink coffee. So if you see me like talking very fast, I'm just very excited about life in general. And I think this is how I was as a kid. I do have a sister, but she's 7 years older. So I did spend a lot of time with myself too. And I think I spent just a lot of time talking with like my dolls. I remember my dad saying, "You ask too many questions, like you're too curious. I always wanted to know things, chat about things." I think this is just how I was as a child, really.
That sounds lovely. What did you want to be when you grow up? That's a really
So,
interesting question for everybody.
yeah, when I grew up, I think for many, many years, I wanted to be a lawyer. I was like, I'm going to fight for justice. I'm going to fight for people. I want to live in a fair world. I think this was stuck with me being a lawyer for many, many years.
Oh, this is interesting. Tell me
Yeah.
a little bit more about your career path and all the pivots you made, because we know that, I mean, some people do have a very linear career, but yours is not like this.
No. So for those of you who don't know it, I would very much highly recommend the podcast Squiggly Careers, because mine is very squiggly too. I mean, obviously I didn't plan it for it to be this way, but essentially, I mean, you probably hear that from the accent. I'm French. So when you're French, you've got to pick a field of study, stick to it until death, essentially, which is a lot of pressure underneath the shoulder of someone who is, less than 20 years old, but it is what it is. And so mine was procurement. I wanted to be a buyer because I loved the international side of things. I love obviously speaking foreign languages. I love speaking, as I've always did, like I mentioned as a child. And so for me, procurement was the thing where I could very much use those language skills, speak with people on a daily basis, and make things happen. And so I started my career in that. I did a first sort of internship, but it was very much like a 1 year full-on internship, and it was not something where you observe. You're very much hands-on. And I had the opportunity to step up because someone actually burned out. So I took her role. She was a global buyer for many, many years of experience, and I took her job essentially. And I actually experienced burnout. And so I'm 23. I'm at the beginning of my career. I've got a 30K student loan to pay. That's supposed to be my life. This is supposed to be my everything. Yet here I am. My brain is not working. My body is not functioning. I've lost all confidence of myself and my abilities. And I'm thinking, whoa, this is going to be such a long, painful journey ahead. Like if I have to work for the next 40, 50, 60 years. And so that opened my eyes very early on about what I wanted my career to be about. So I think this is a very long way for me to say, Nika. I've, started the career with never having like a pink set of glasses. You know what I mean? Like I've never sort of had a honeymoon phase with my career. I've always been pretty honest and realist with it because of that experience. With that in mind, still had, my knowledge, my student loan to pay. So after that experience, I gave it another go. And I did a couple of years. I worked for a company called EY, so very large firm, very much had to relax with the people I was working with. But then at some point, I realized I would love to work in a different setting, because for those of you who don't know it, EY is one of the big four. It's a gigantic firm. Back then, it was something like 380,000 people. So 250,000 working for the same business. I thought I have to do something at a different scale. So I made a pivot back then, not only to change the size of business I was working with, but also the role I was having. I've moved from being a buyer and working in procurement as being a consultant, because I felt transferable skills. very much, exposed with people, different teams, problematics. I would very much love that. I love being on the ground and I love being a problem solver. And I did that. That was really, really cool. And then eventually the work that I did with the team led to a huge redundancy pieces of work. So a lot of people lost their job because of me, like, let's face it. And this was before COVID, this was before this was a thing. And so I realized, I understand this job has to be done, but I don't think I want to be the one doing it. And here I am, 27, asking myself the big questions again. And I was like, no, this is just not working for me. And so I stumbled across coaching as an opportunity for me to do something for myself. This was just for me first. It was just like, let's just reset the scene, recalibrate. Let's just think about what I want. And as I stumbled into that, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is all about people. There is no Excel spreadsheets. There is no cost savings. I can very much be there to support professionals being the best self. And so this time was love at first sight. I mean, I remember my boyfriend, now husband, back then was like, I've never given you any drugs, when I came back from that introduction class. And I was like, this is just the best thing ever. Like, I feel like this is a calling. I finally got my calling and that red thread of me being passionate about people and asking questions since I was very young. It's all coming together. So long story short, that was almost 8 years ago now. That was the biggest pivot I've made to quit my corporate career that, barely started, if you think about it in the bigger scheme of things, to start my own thing. Not because I wanted to start my own thing, but because I wanted to help people. Like, the coaching was the calling, and then it took the form of me having a business.
And what's your ideal client for you being a coach? Or what are you as a coach like? What's the one thing that really resonates with you when you say, okay, this is definitely a client I want to work with?
Oh, this is a good question. So I feel for me, the person I'd love to work with is the person who knows something has to change. Don't necessarily know how, but knows there is something better that awaits. Like, I come across with little clients, potential clients who want easy fixes. Those are not necessarily the people I am the best positioned to help, in the sense that my work is very much deep work. It's introspection. You need to ask yourself the sometimes tough question to be able to understand what exactly is important to you. And so how does that play a part in the next steps that you're taking professionally? So those will be my ideal client. And so as a coach, that means that people can rely to me for support, structure, asking sometimes the tough questions, but really giving them the space to figure out what it is that they need. I don't, I'm not a coach / mentor. I'm very much a coach in the sense that I really provide them with the right tools to give them the space to ask the right questions.
And how do you spot when you're working with a client that the person is approaching burnout, or it's just like a healthy stretch that they're doing in their career?
Nika, this is a thin line, right? It's really, really tough. I mean, I've been there. So I'm in a position to recognize early signs. Early signs usually involve things like a physical impact, usually, like they're struggling to sleep or they're struggling to do other things than work. Like, it usually takes the form other than even the work itself. It's hard to say when a stretch is healthy because everyone has their own resistance to stress. That being said, usually the signs is when the person doesn't feel in control, like whatever shape or form, whether they feel like they don't have the control over their workload, over the relationships they have at work, or even like in personal side of things, their health, as I've mentioned, their sleep. And those are usually the signs that I'm on the lookout for.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I think burnout really resembles at every person really differently. So there is, like you've said, there is no singular thing that you could say, oh, this person is going towards burnout.
Yeah.
I know, for example, for myself, the first signs that I need to look for is starting avoiding the computer. This is, for me, has always been, it's not like that little resentment. It's not like something is happening and I just need to avoid it or I want to avoid it. It's just like normal daily stuff that usually you go behind a computer, open an email, answer emails. It's nothing special. Have a few chats, few virtual coffees and everything. But for me, it's that thing like, today I would not be doing this. I would rather doing something else. And usually I don't do anything productive if I don't do it. It's not like I'm studying or whatever. It's just like avoiding, just the idea of avoidance. It's already for me I'm not going to say a red light because it's still far away from any burnout, but it's like that
It's
thing.
like an
Okay,
amber
something,
light.
yeah, something like, okay, this something is happening. Let's
Mm.
rethink and let's refocus and see what's going on and just take a little bit of a breather, maybe take a day or two off or a few hours off and just see what's going on, trying to identify what's the core, because there is always something behind it.
Yeah,
It's not like just you wake
100%.
up with this idea. There is definitely a reason behind it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's usually a buildup. And I think you're touching on something really important, which is self-awareness. I think, as you said, the burnout is not like a specific checklist that you can say, okay, you got this, you got that. I mean, there are some common signs, but everyone is unique. Their tolerance and resistance to stress is unique. So I love the idea that you know already what are the signs for you. So for anyone listening to this, I think it's just having that level of self-awareness. And if you don't have it, that's absolutely fine. Maybe you just need to spend some time with yourself in your bubble to just understand what's going on, just being with your own thoughts and just unpack the whole piece.
During your work, did you identify any boundaries that we can share that work for a wider population? Let's put it like this. For example, I don't know, no mobiles in your bedroom or no TV in the bedroom, or I don't know, I'm making things
Yeah.
up, but just some universal boundaries that are good to have in place and actually work.
Yeah. I mean, the B word, Nika, you're speaking my language here. So I do have a few, and some of them I would very much consider recommending. But like, for example, for me personally, I don't take any meetings before 11. You're an exception right now, because I technically don't feel like this is a client meeting. This is very much, a conversation between you and I. But yeah, I don't take any meetings before 11. For me, I want to do my deep work. That's one. The second thing is, the first thing that I usually do in the morning is not necessarily looking at my phone. It's just taking some time to be with my body. So I do have, a little one at home. So sometimes I'm not in charge of what my morning is looking like, but just staying away from screens in the morning, being in the body, doing some workout, breathing, whatever that is. And what I also do is that I have a hard stop for work, but also obviously to be with my son at like 5 p.m. So 5 p.m. I very much stop. So that means my day are pretty condensed, they're pretty intense. It's like 8 to 5, but at least I'm making the most out of these hours. I try not to work at night. Like sometimes I host events face to face in London. I mean, I don't consider this work anyway, but sometimes life happens and that's okay. But usually I also don't work at night. And then I do have a routine when I go to sleep. I feel like sleep is so critical, in our daily life and in the world that we live in, where we're always stimulated and stuff. But sometimes it's hard to find sleep. So I feel like having a nice sort of calming down routine at night is also sometimes very helpful. So mine involves, stretching, and then a little bit of reading, a little bit of journaling, but obviously very much staying away from screens. So I would very much recommend to anyone considering what's their relationship with screen time, especially at night.
Yeah. I mean, I think that those are really universal boundaries that work for everybody. So,
Mm.
and also one thing that's worth mentioning, don't be afraid to set them up and don't be afraid to communicate the boundaries to whomever, because I think that people say, okay, I'm going to stop working at 5 because I want to spend time with my husband or wife or, I don't know, my dog, my kid, whatever. But then there's like, a client comes in and
Mm.
wants to do a meeting at 6 and you're like, okay, let me just take this one meeting because for whatever
Yeah.
reason. But you're actually not doing yourself any favor,
No.
not to your presence, but also not to yourself personally. I think that it's really important that once you set the boundaries, you're really comfortable in sharing them as well.
Yeah.
It's a very
Yeah.
important bit.
We could have an entire conversation about like boundaries themselves, right? So obviously there is the boundaries themselves, but like you said, there is the reinforcing the boundaries. I feel like you said, not only you're not doing yourself a favor, but you're almost letting yourself down, You're letting yourself down because you had sort of a commitment with yourself to protect, your time, your energy, or whatever that boundary does for you. And the fact that you're sort of stepping over it for someone else, I feel like it's not sending the right message as well, like consciously, subconsciously, at all levels. I don't think this is the right thing.
Yeah, totally agree with you. It's really
Hmm.
important. Tell me about her circle. Let's touch
Oh, yeah.
base with this. What are you doing with it? What's your aim? What's all about?
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, I don't know about you. We could do another side conversation about your journey as well as a founder. But essentially, when I started my business, I've had many different names. Now my business is called Her Coach because I believe that every single person has their own definition of what career happiness looks like. It's like almost like a unique code they have to unpack. I do a lot of work with women, but then what I've realized is that working one-on-one with clients, some problems were coming again on the table. And actually, I didn't have a space for them to understand that they were not alone and that there were other people like going through similar challenges. So this is where Her Circle comes in. It's a very specific entity as part of my business, which essentially is a community for women living abroad who are looking to make the most out of their careers. And so what happens in Her Circle is that we do have online events, but also face-to-face events for now in London, but stay tuned, more to come, where we just, get together and we essentially have conversations around the topics of, self-confidence, building a career that you're happy with. How does that look like to be visible in the workplace or when you're setting up a business? So really all of the topics that are always challenging when you're navigating this by yourself. So providing the space to, work on this as a collective.
And for women working abroad, I mean, I'm one of them as well, although a long time working abroad person, but still, if you would be speaking to organizations that are employing us as women, what would be one small policy change or practical change even in supporting women working abroad that they could adopt?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, the spectrum of, people and women working abroad is wide and large, right? But usually what that means by definition is that you're away from your home, your family, or, some of the close ones. And so what would be really, really, really ideal, like you do have more nowadays and still work to do on, maternity policy transparencies and things like that. I think having some form of like transparency or policy about how does that look like to, for example, work abroad, or have some form of a scheme or support system when these people can be with their close one in, for example, in times of critical illness or things that really require them to be close with their family. I think could be really, really ideal, so that you feel like you're continuing building your life, your career in the country that you've chosen, but you also can keep your ties guilt free with the where your family is essentially.
Yeah, I think with working abroad, it's always about finding your kind of people wherever you are. And I mean, we're lucky now that we live in a online age where everything is also able to do remotely. I remember when I started working abroad in 2009, there was nothing. You were really like, just
By yourself.
another foreigner working abroad.
Mm.
And if you didn't know the language, it was really hard to find your
Fit
own
in.
community.
Yeah.
Fit in, but also to find your community, because most of the challenges you're facing, people that are living or working with you and are from the same country don't understand. Somebody that's living with a family doesn't understand. I miss my family when I'm not
Yeah.
when I'm not with them, and how challenging it is. And I think it's really it's a challenge, but it's definitely having also these online communities definitely helps
Yeah.
as well, I would say. What is it? Do you want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
Carry on.
No, I wanted to ask, we talk also about underrepresented stuff, and it's not unusual that women, when they are abroad, find themselves in this underrepresented community for various reasons, obviously. How would you measure the impact of a visibility program that one company adopts? So a company wants to tackle employing underrepresented communities. What would visibility look like? What's the measure of impact? Like what would you measure and how?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I mean, can you give me some more context for your questions? Do you mean like a program that is rolled out internally for people to be more
Yeah.
visible? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would very much say, obviously, again, it depends on, let's say, the size of the organization and the scope of the program. But visibility for me is such an important word, and it's such an important sort of almost skill that we all have to have in our toolkit. So I would say a successful program and rollout would be to measure, how participants feel to speak in different settings, whether it's like internal meetings or one-to-one, like you're having almost like a grid of understanding and assessing what visibility looked like, almost like an audit before the program, and then measuring it after the program. And so for the program to really involve practical tools that you can share with the participants so that they feel equipped, because I feel like everybody knows they have to be visible, but they just don't know how to be visible. And they also think that visibility sometimes means to be the loudest in the room, where it doesn't have to be, right? There are some other tools where you could build one-to-one rapport behind the scenes, or where you could just be like make it a practice to really record all of the achievements that you have and like play it back to your manager or whoever you're working with on a regular basis. Like there are so many things that you can do to be visible, but in a way that works for you. So going back to your question, a successful program would very much be about encapsulating, first of all, where the participants are at when it comes to the challenge that they have to be visible, feeling heard, seen, and understood, doing an audit of that. So then you can map out specific training programs that you can roll out and then assess this at the back of that. And obviously a successful program would be, okay, let's say we had like scale of 1 to 10 and, most of the participants averaged across all sections of like, I don't know, a 4 or 5, and we've moved the needle to like even a 6 or 7. That would already be a good place to start. It's not, perfect, but I would say it's a place to start.
And what would you say, what's one storytelling or personal branding trick that would help the quiet clients show up more visibly? So we know that some people struggle with, as I said, it's not always the loudest person in the room that's most visible. So what would be that one trick that you would advise it?
A very good question. I think it's understanding what your USP, sorry, unique selling points. So potentially the fact that maybe you're the quietest in the room is actually the biggest advantage that you have, which means really doubling down on the fact that you don't necessarily like speak a lot, so speak much, but when you do speak, you're making a very important valid point that comes across. So, when it comes to personal branding and really sort of owning your unique traits, again, it's not necessarily about doing what others use, is really doing things in a way that feels sort of aligned. If you're forcing yourself to do something that really feels completely uncomfortable, then that's not working. Don't get me wrong, you do need to stretch the comfort zone, right? Because all of us, in whatever shape or forms, we are in our comfort zone. So visibility and putting yourself out there involves some form of stretch, but it should not be something that feels like completely unreasonable and like get some physical reaction to it. So for anyone who is very quiet, what I always recommend, because I do have some clients who fall under that bucket, is really understanding what are their key values, 3 to 5, what are the key things that they want people to know about them. And if they don't have the answers to these questions, just ask the question around. Just ask, your friends, your family, colleagues that you either work with actively or you've worked with in the past, so you can be out of your own head and understand, just map out what your personal brand is. Once you've got that, you can then really double down on it by building relationships, potentially on the one-to-one basis. Again, I don't think you have to be the loudest in the room. You can just have the right conversation with the right people at the right time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It makes
Mm.
sense. I think this is also a good point, is quality over quantity. So it's not how much you write, how much you put yourself out there, but what
Yeah.
you put yourself out there with, or what's the content that you're putting yourself out there with.
Absolutely.
What would be one mindset block that you find it's quite common when working with people, and it's disabling people from making big career changes? Because I know that a lot of people are silently considering maybe a career change, but for whatever reason, they are not either able to, or they feel confident enough to do it, but would love to do it. Do you see any common mindset block that's showing up with working with people that you work with, that you can identify maybe?
Yeah, absolutely do. And absolutely great question. I would say, obviously, there are many, many variations of these, but I would say the two most common are, the first one is very much the fear of failure. So what if, I make that change and I'm making things worse, or it's just not working? I think this is probably the biggest one, right? It's like fear of failure, and associated with it, you do have fear of judgment. Like, what would people think of me? Like, I've spent, I don't know, 5, 7, 10 years into that direction. I've built my network in, I don't know, like insurance. What if I want to be a florist tomorrow? Like what would people think of that? So fear of failure and fear of judgment are usually big ones. And there is also another one, which is very much around sort of self-confidence related to, in the sense that people are just worried that they would not have what it takes to make it happen. So there is usually a huge part of them holding themselves back that we're working on. Those are usually the biggest mindset blocks that I see. But to be honest, most of the time, the huge piece of work is done when you bring that self awareness about what is the mindset block, but also what happens if I end up overcoming that mindset block. Like, what's on the other side? Oh my God, I could really, really be happy professionally. I could let go of that toxic relationship at work, or that feeling of not feeling valued, whether I've got like a really bad salary or because the company or the team around me just doesn't see all of the work that I'm putting together. You know what I mean? So yeah, usually the mindset block obviously is around those lines. And there are some other people that it's a different story. Like, for example, I work with a lot of people who have been born and raised by Nigerian parents. Don't ask me why we ended up with having a niche in Nigeria with the word, but it is what it is. And so a lot of them have the pressure of the parents of like, you have to be a doctor. You cannot be like a founder or doing your own thing. Like there is also sometimes the cultural, parental, environmental expectations, like external expectations that play a huge part in holding themselves back moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Cultural differences are a
Mm-hmm.
big thing. And
Yeah.
another thing that I recently wrote on LinkedIn, it's also comparison. I think that
Mm.
people are finding, in the days of social media like we are now, it's so easy to compare yourself to others. And if you do make a career change and suddenly you're not as successful as other people claim to be, trust me, most of the people that claim to be so successful are usually not, but it's just an online persona that they play out with. And then you find yourself comparing with people who have really unrealisticable goals, or just projects or results even. And you feel like a failure but it's really not needed. That's why I always say, just make yourself really small baby steps and small attainable goals that will
Yeah.
actually fill your cup. And don't compare yourself to others. At least, I mean, competition is great, but comparison can be really a thief of all joy.
Yeah. I mean, this expression for me hits home. And also, we all, like you said, first of all, don't trust everything you see online, right? I literally posted as well on that last week, where people was like, oh my God, how do you do it all? Well, I don't do it all. And here's what I don't do, like it looks like I do all of these, but that also means I'm dropping balls on X, Y, and Z, right? Point is, we all have unique journeys, and comparing yourself means that you're thinking you're starting at the exact same point as this person, but you don't. You never are, because you've got a unique background, a unique journey that made you the person that you are. And I feel like this is where people get it wrong, is that it's like comparing apples to apples, but you're absolutely not. We're looking at different fruits. You might be even a vegetable and the other person a fruit. So you can't compare these things. Like you said, you can't let that hold you back in a way.
Absolutely. So, is there anything else that you would like to share with our visitors? I want to finish with one tiny action that you'd like listeners to try tomorrow to move forward towards a more purpose-driven career. But if there is anything else that you would like to share, feel free. It's your time
I
now.
feel like this is a great question to finish with. Thank you so much, Nika. For anyone who is listening and who made it this far, first of all, thank you very much. And I would say I very much challenge you and encourage you to think, what's the one thing that truly brings you joy in your day-to-day work-wise? What's the thing that you really enjoy doing that is, yeah, just, effort-free, that is just easy to go with? And how can you cultivate that a little bit more every day moving forward? Really taking the time to just think about that one thing and seeing how you can intentionally cultivate it and see where it takes you. I would say that would be my one thing.
That's great. I think it was a really meaningful discussion. And I
Mm.
also believe that listeners will learn a lot and discover a lot even about themselves if they listen really carefully.
Happy listening.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you, Nika,
And
for
some
having
final
me.
words for the listeners.
Trust yourself. Whatever, intuition in whatever shapes or form, whether it's in your head, in your heart, in your gut, in your entire body, just listen to that. Trust yourself to making the right decisions, because your future you would be very grateful.
Totally agree. Thank you so much, Anaïs.
Thank you, Nika.